Hello students, this is BHATTACHARYA. Actually, I made my first video I uploaded for the chapter Indigo class 12. Today I would like to tell you the most important chapter of poetry, Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Now Pablo Neruda, as you know, is a Chilean poet, and his real name, pen name of Neftali Ricardo Reis Basalto. Real name is Neftali Ricardo Reis Basalto. Now, this keeping quiet, let me discuss about the title, Keeping Quiet, okay? Now, as far as keeping quiet is concerned, in today's life, you all know that we are all in a rat race. We are running to and fro. We are running to after money. We are very tensed. We don't have time to discuss with our parents, neighbors. So we are very busy. We're leading a busy life. So in this situation, keeping quiet, this poem is very much relevant, as well as it is a poem wherefrom we can get the ideology of life. Now, keeping quiet, as you know, is a poem of um, self introspection. Please note it down, self introspection. Why self introspection? What is that? Self introspection means self analysis, without which a human being cannot progress in life. See, as far as this poem is concerned, we can see that through self introspection or self analysis, we can reach our goal safely. And this is the time when we need to analyze ourselves, that whatever we are doing, whatever we are performing in our day to day life, are we walking in the right path? That is very important. Okay, let me come to the main poetry section. Now, first is that the two lines are there. Now we will count to 12. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. We will all keep still. These two lines, this is called the couplet. Couplet means two line stanza. Okay, so this couplet says us to remain silent for a while. 12 here is a 12-second time, very less time. Still, it is important for you to remain silent. Okay, we will all keep still. No activity. The poet Pablo Neruda asks us not to go for any activity for certain time, for very little time, very little time. What is that? For 12 seconds, it's a very less time. And what will you do with this time? We will go for self introspection, self analysis. Next stanza, for once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. Okay. Now, with this second stanza, there are 4 lines in this stanza. 4-line stanza is known as quatrain. As you know, 4-line stanza is quatrain. For once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language. That means the poet is urging us, requesting us, suggesting us that let's not speak in any language. That means no verbal communication will take place. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. That means we will not go any physical activity this time, and it would be a very extraordinary moment of peace, serenity, calm. Despite inactivity, it would be a productive phase wherein the fishermen would not be killing whales. They go to sea for fishing, and they will not harm whales, they will not kill whales. And at the same time, salt gatherers, fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt gatherers, would look at his hard hands, would look at his hard hands. That means when the salt gatherers go and pick up salts from the seashore, they get hot in their hands. And therefore, the poet is asking the salt gatherers, they should have the time to give respite to his injured hands. They will not injure their hands for few moments. The poet wants the makers of war to cleanse themselves and wash out the ill will against their brethren. Against their brethren. And he visualizes them sitting on the shady grounds in harmony. Sitting in the shady grounds in the harmony. Those who prepare green wars, and wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors. Very important line, please underline. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors. Now you see, green war is very important term, green war. Please underline, green war. Green war refers to the war. Green war refers to the war against the nature. We are continuously destroying the nature. We are engaging ourselves in deforestation, polluting the nature. But what we are keeping for our future time, future generation? Nothing. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors. See, here this line, victory with no survivors. When you got the victory, but there is no survivor, what is the point of it? The poet wants to say, he is not the worshipper of war, rather, he is the worshipper of peace. Victory with no survivors. It is very irony indeed. It is ironical. Victory with no survivors. He visualizes them sitting on the shady grounds in harmony. He links the sweet stopping of time with hope for a peaceful world. He would not like the world to be destroyed in war. He also appeals to an environmental degradation, caused by exploitation of resources. All of that would result in the irreparable destruction of life and property. War brings death and destruction, nothing else. But still we engage in wars. It is very, something which is pointless. Something which is pointless. What I want should not be confused. This line is very important. Here, Pablo Neruda is very clear in his ideology, notion. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. The poet is never saying about total inactivity that you will be lazy, you will be idle, and you should not engage in any sort of work. No, he is not saying so. That's why he is putting these lines. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. He is not saying about total inactivity. Life is what it is about. Life is what it is about. I want no track with death if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing. Perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. See, silence and calm should not be confused with lethargy, inactivity. Withdrawing ourselves from any sort of activity would mean death. The God has sent us in this earth for what? For doing some good deeds and not to be idle. The end of everything, if you are not engaging yourself in any sort of activity, I'm sure of that. The poet is sure of that. On the contrary, he looks forward to higher form of existence, Mindless activity leads to the misery of never having to think and leads to self-destruction. If we are not single-minded, please underline, if we are not single-minded refers to, becoming selfish. You see in and around you that people are becoming selfish. For those people destroying the nature, filling up the ponds, lakes, to build up multi-storied building flats, shopping malls, they don't care, they don't bother destroying the nature. If we are not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. That means, if we are going to the total inactiveness, then we will welcome death, destruction. So we should not do. In the last 5 lines, the poet is saying, perhaps the earth can teach us, and when everything seems dead, and later proves to be alive. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. So these lines tells us, Mother Earth can serve as the greatest teacher for humanity. It seems quiet and still, yet nurtures so much life on it. After initiating this process of introspection, I told you, after initiating the self-introspection, the poet wants each of his readers, us, to take responsibility of spreading this message, while he moves on to initiate this exercise at another place. So, the last couplet, now I will count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. Here, the poet is optimistic that the day will come very soon when his readers or we will understand the importance of self-introspection. Please remember the word self-introspection. This is the key word in writing answers in your exam paper. Okay. So I believe that you understood this thing. Apart from this, I will tell you something which is very important. In your poetry section, you will find MCQ questions, that multiple choice question will be given to you, and there are some sort of figures of speech are there you should go through, like personification, simile, metaphor, then synecdoche, hyperbole, antithesis, imagery. These all kinds of, for the purpose of poetry reading, you should know the figures which are the poetic devices. The question will come. Let me tell you from this poem, face of the earth, face of the earth is the personification. Why? Because we are considering earth as a person. So, face of the earth, okay? It is a personification. Synecdoche, not move our arms so much. Not move our arms so much. Hyperbole or exaggeration. What is that? Hyperbole or exaggeration is a figure of speech where we want to say something which is practically not, which is in an exaggerated form. In Hindi we say bada chara ke bolna, right? So likewise, victory with no survivors. It is hyperbole indeed. Victory with no survivors. Hyperbole. Contrasting antithetical imagery. Words walk about with their brothers in shade. Okay. So you will be finding many more figures of speech with this, and I hope that you in this video you will understand the summary thoroughly, and you please go through this poem once again for your convenience. Okay, please. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.